We good?
Should be good to go. We'll see if Eileen can get connected.
Okay, I'd like to call to order this regularly scheduled Board of Finance meeting for May 12th, 2021. Not in attendance is Mark Mulvaney, and Eileen is trying to get on the Zoom now. So let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Do we have is everyone in from the waiting room, Dan?
Everybody is in. It looks like Eileen is still having audio trouble though.
Okay. Public comment. There's nobody there, so we can move on. Brianna?
Yes, we just had two communication and correspondence from Rose DeMarco and Howard Lasser.
Okay. Meeting minutes.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the April 28th special meeting minutes and April 21st special meeting minutes.
I'll second it. Discussions? Okay, let's have a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes 4-0. And it's time for Mr. Steve Dunn.
Hey guys, how you doing? Our COVID numbers are down, way down. We're into the yellow zone for the first time in a year. Our positivity rate is amongst the best in the state. In the last week reported, we had 10 cases, and we hope that continues going forward. In light of that, and in having discussions with the Board of Selectmen and the governor's executive orders expiring on May 19th, we're going to start the open town hall for public meetings on June 1st right now, unless something crazy happens. We want to wait till we see. We think that the executive orders will be continued in some shape or form, but we're not sure what they'll be. So we're going to wait to see on the 19th what the governor does. And so we'll slowly start to open there. The Candlewood Lake water line, the bids came in. They were all either slightly over budget, but most of them were under the budget that we had planned for. We're now vetting all those bids, checking references and things like that. And we hope to award that next week. Phase 3 of the streetscape, we finally, waiting since December, got approval from the local District 4, and we have our PAL letter, which is the funding letter and approval letter to go ahead. We'll be going out to bid for phase 3 next week, early next week, and we hope to start construction this summer. The supermarket in the downtown is moving ahead. They will start to make their driveway on June 14th, which will cross the Greenway. We asked them to delay for a little bit because we're having the Connecticut Greenways Association is having an awards presentation on the 4th of June, and they've asked to do it on our Greenway, and we didn't want to have the Greenway blocked and inaccessible. So for a period of about 3 to 4 weeks, the Greenway will not be accessible right across from Laurel Hill Road. It'll be blocked, it'll be marked. We'll be telling people about that. In our blight panel, we had a meeting. We have sent 2 properties orders to be demolished or repaired, and those have 120 days. So that's another about 80 days for the owners to either demolish the buildings or fix them up, or at least start that process. We foreclosed on a few properties, and we're going through that right now. And we've added, I think, 3 properties at the last meeting where we believe there was some blight. So that's moving forward. If anybody wants more information on that, we can send it to them. We'd like to talk a little bit about the American Rescue Plan, which people are now calling ARPA, A-R-P-A. Marcia, could you bring up the presentation? So let's go to the next page. So we received our initial guidance on May 11th, which was yesterday. And so Marcia and I both read through that. I sent all of you what that was, 150 pages of guidance. Marcia and I have both been on meetings about this. I've been on 3, I think Marcia's been on 4, discussing this, what it means, what we can do, what we can't do. And it's still in my opinion, as clear as mud. If you read any of that 150 pages, it's very, very general and very vague. But we're starting to go through the process. The rules are still in process. There are still a lot of questions that need to be clarified. We can start using this money starting on expenses from March 3rd of this year. It goes through the 2024. And here's the description that they're describing. Incurred means an obligation. That's under the uniform grant guidelines from the Treasury. An obligation means ordered in the universal grant guideline. The completion of the products is required by the 2026 time period. Sorry, something just popped up on my screen I got to get rid of. We have one half is supposedly being funded in May. That's what they told us this month, and the other half will be funded a year from now in May. We are getting, there are two avenues of money. Cities over 50,000 will be getting money directly from the U.S. Treasury. Cities under 50,000, the money will first go to the state and then be deposited to each of the towns. The state cannot hold on to this money for more than like 10 or 15 days once they receive it. And then we have to do reporting every year. Can we move to the next slide?
Yes.
Here are the things that are not allowed. This is very clear. These parts are very clear. Except for water, sewer, or broadband, any other infrastructure spending is not allowed. We could do, as you know, the WPCA came to the Board of Selectmen and asked for about $340,000 to complete a project in the town center with the Craft Center, the Brookfield Market, and Tuck Road. So that's one of the things we could do. What we hope to do is to get a lot of input from various groups in town. So from the Board of Finance, from planning, from individuals. So we're hoping, I'm going to ask the Board of Selectmen to set up some committees, informal committees that can look at the needs of the town, look at the requirements of these grants, and see what fits and what doesn't fit, and then we'll move forward from there. Here, the infrastructure is, I do want to repeat this, as infrastructure as you use here seems to mean systems and not actual hard capital. So I think for broadband or sewer, you can do that, and water, but anything else, we have to get some more clarification. It's still not very, very clear at all. And my opinion here is, and I've asked this but did not get an answer yet, is okay, we want to do a project. We think it fits within the guidelines. Can we go to you, the Treasury, and say, here's my project, will this be approved? Before we spend the money, and 5 years from now, they say, nah, sorry, that doesn't count. I think they're going to have to set up some kind of pre-approval process. I know that right now I don't see that in place because they want people to start spending this money, but I'm not comfortable spending a ton of money unless we're absolutely sure it will fit under the guidelines. Can we go to the next page, Marcia? Here is the details. I won't go through all of it, but this comes right out of the initial funding guidelines. Some things are simple, PPE, testing, contact tracing. We're doing all of that. So we could possibly pay for some of that we continue to do after March, but that's starting to wind down. And some of the other services you can see here that to address behavioral health care and payroll and covered benefits expenses for public health, healthcare, human services, et cetera, as they apply to COVID-19 responses. So we would, if we were wanted to say, put in human resources, our human resources people would have to clearly delineate what time they spent working on COVID-19 related versus other things. So we're still working through this. It's still a work in progress. Can you move to the next page? Thanks. So our initial review on this, we looked at existing operating costs that might qualify. These are them, vaccines, et cetera. Certain health payroll, we have Maureen Farrell running our clinics. We're paying her. We do have that under a grant right now. We might want to change that. Our Code Red system, which we're using to get out information on the virus to our residents, is most likely eligible. And then the future costs to consider efforts to prevent spread in the schools and public facilities, upgrading HVAC systems, ventilation systems. It looks like that might be good. So the subcommittee we're looking here, we'd at least include for this, for COVID response, a health department representative, a facilities person from both the schools and the town, and somebody from the NBC. And we'd also ask other expert individuals in town who might want to join us. Can we go to the next page? So on the economic impacts part of the ARPA Act, this is delivering assistance to workers and small business. One of the things we might be able to do, and we're still checking, is we know we have some businesses in town that have really been hurt by the pandemic, have basically been shut down. Would we be able to take some of that money and rebuild that public sector? You know, grants, loans, things like that. We're still looking at that. And I think that might be for some of those smaller businesses that have been really hit. It would be great if we could help them. Can we move on, Marsh?
Steve, before we go there,
Yeah,
Steve, I'm back on that page, like the small business.
right.
I think before, this was my thought, and I've read all one of those 150 pages, okay? Our small businesses are our core foundation of this town.
Yep.
They've gone through a lot. I spoke to a few restaurants. They're spending $5,000 for menus a year right now. I mean, their expenses directly related to COVID. One restaurant has 60,000 in COVID related costs just recently. So I'd like to see or be a part of a committee on the, like I say, the restaurants and the small businesses, because I really think instead of trying to find blue sky dollars,
Yeah.
these are the core of our town that, you know, we go to congregate at, we support. Just my 2 cents before we go
Yeah.
farther. Sorry.
No, I agree with you 100%. It seems to me from going around town, it's our restaurants. We had a catering business that is in extreme difficulty. Our business just dried up. If we can get them back up and running and supported, that would be a really good way to use some of this fund. I agree with you 100%.
Even if we set aside like $1 million or 500,000 and then split it up amongst them somehow.
Hey, and you know, a lot of these businesses, you know, they're not $20 million businesses. These are $200,000 businesses, but they're hurting. And we could really help them.
Those are the foundations of our town is what I
Yeah.
see.
And it takes a long time to get them back. So I think that's a very good idea, and I would support that fully, as I think most of you would. Under the economic impacts, you know, this is what we could cover. Again, we're going to start a subcommittee. We'd bring somebody from social services, parks and rec, economic development, education representative, and other individuals. And if you'd like to sit on that, Glenn, we'd love to have you. And we'll be putting a call out once I talk to the Board of Selectmen for people to come help us do this. Lost revenue. I don't think that the town really has any lost revenue. We've been looking at it. And it applies to growth rate to the base year, which I believe is 2019. And we can do this as of December 31st of last year. You know, we haven't had a lot of lost revenue, vendor permits for $1,200. Otherwise, our revenues are either steady or rising. So we'll have to look at that a little more carefully. Maybe we can think of places we've lost revenue. Can we move on? Infrastructure. You know, this gets a little more difficult. In one part, we said, hey, infrastructure isn't included. And then they say it may be. You know, access to clean drinking water. This is clearly, maybe we could do the Candlewood Lake water line, get some money for that, put some there. I don't know that had started previously. So we have to see if that would help us. Limited green stormwater management infrastructure, our MS4 program. And I'm not sure about broadband. I thought about this, but the town isn't in this business now. So we really have to find out what we would need to do. And if we have areas of town that are not being serviced with broadband, I don't know that there are. We just have to look at that.
On broadband, Steve, sorry to interrupt again.
Yeah.
NBC News put out a news thing today that anybody who has been hurt by COVID that's under a certain revenue can get $50 off from the government direct. So on
That's true.
an internet process, we could post that on the town website. Instead of spending this money, they can go directly and get $50 off a month if they're in need.
Yeah, that's a separate program.
Yes,
This is actually talking about, if I understood it correctly, actually installing broadband,
okay,
the last mile, as it were.
okay,
I could be wrong, but yeah, there is that $50. If you under a certain income level, you can do that. I think we have that on the town website. I'm gonna look at that. We
The
may not.
school sent it out today too. We've got notifications from the schools. for
Yeah.
that. The cybersecurity, would that, this insurance that we now have, would that be
It
covered
might.
by that?
It might. It's gotta be pandemic COVID related. So we'd have to see how that would work in there, but it is a new expense
Mhm.
for sure. There's no doubt about it. And this is where I say, if we were gonna do that, we'd wanna go to the feds first and say, will this be approved? And get a yay or a nay. But here you can see, Glenn, broadband service to underserved or unserved populations. I don't know. I know we have some areas in town where people have really poor service, but it's still broadband.
okay,
And I think the minimum here they're talking about is 100 MBS download and 5 MBS upload. And that's reasonably healthy. It's not perfect, but it will get better. So that's something we have to look at. Can we
Okay.
move to the next page? And then maybe the Candlewood Lake Waterline, we thought the WPCA system, maybe we could do the drainage, we're thinking, on the high school field. Because the way I'm thinking, we want to get kids outside, we want them to play more. We could get those fields, the utilization of those fields up. That might be a little bit of a stretch, but those are the sort of things we want to brainstorm about. And these are the people we would ask somebody to join us. So we have skill sets in all of these areas. And again, some individuals from the town, if they're willing to join us. Can we move to the next page, please? And that's it for me, guys. Any questions?
yeah, one more. I'd like to add Brookfield Cares to your list. I think that falls under the mental health and the if they got programs. I think that is a nonprofit that maybe could use some money if they had a program or something as well.
Yeah. I talked to Colette today, and we'll definitely include them.
And is this $5 million total or $1 million annual over the next 5 years?
No, it's $5 million total, almost $5 million total, and we're supposed to get half this month and half a year from now is what we're told.
Okay. All right, anybody else have a question for Steve?
What happens if we don't have uses for it?
They take it back, I
Take it
believe.
back?
So
I
we
gotta-
would
I
pick
gotta
it
believe-
up as, if we get it from the state, they don't have it clarified yet how we get it from the state. If the state just sends it to us, then we put it as deferred revenue, as a liability. But my guess is that we're going to have to do an application. I don't know. Everything so far that they've been on all these seminars have been at the federal level, mostly talking to the towns over 50,000 population. So those of us that are getting it through the state, we don't really know yet.
Yeah, and Marcia, would you agree? We sat on all these conference calls for an hour, 2 hours at a clip. And the feds, if you ask them specific questions, would this be covered? Oh, we don't know. Oh, we don't know. The feds have not thought it through to actual projects that would be approved or not approved.
So
Would you agree, Marcia?
would this flow through an annual budget or a series of budgets, or would it be outside of that? And if it's outside of it, who's actually in control of making decisions and dispersing the money?
That's a really good question. It goes into deferred revenue until we start to spend it. Then I think we will pull it into our budget. And they have not said, they just said the town makes approval. So that will probably be on the highest level legislative body of the town. But I don't think the Board of Selectmen should be making these decisions without having discussions with everyone, including the Board of Finance, Planning, NBC, all of the parties we've been talking about for the last 10 minutes. I think we want to get a consensus in the town and the town boards especially as to how we should spend this money. Does that make sense, Dan?
It does. It does. I agree with the concept, and in practice and the rules, we'll have to, I guess it's still unknown, but that makes sense what you're saying.
Yeah, you know me. I've
Yeah.
not done anything. There are things at the Board of Selectmen. I think if the Board of Selectmen, if they were gotten up on their high horse, could make these decisions, but I think we get better decisions if everybody's involved.
Yep. Okay.
Fairness, Dan, to Stephen Marcia, I read the 151 pages.
What did you think?
There is very little guidance. That's why
Exactly.
I'm really hung up on the small business, because that's a real clear cut. If they were affected by COVID, they had to spend extra money. That is a clear cut use. And that's why, again, the foundations, but other than that, it's so vague on what you can use it for. It's very difficult to get through this.
Scary almost.
So,
Yep.
all right, we're done with that, Steve. Everybody asked the questions they need to ask of Steve. All right, we're on to the report of the finance director with the Board of Ed. Rosa?
Okay. So as you saw in my the report that I sent you, our end of year projections have gotten better by about 48,000. And most of that has come from John and Ken meeting with the principals and having them kind of go through their budgets again, making sure they're capturing everything that they feel like they won't spend by the end of the year. And extended duty and instructional supplies, we don't feel like we'll be spending all of those. So that's the majority of the decreased expenditures. There was some increases in health benefits. We're going through a lot of subs at the high school with the return to full in person there. And we do have some loss in revenue, but overall, this is a really good improvement from given last month. The only other report that I didn't send you guys was special education outplacement tuition, that reconciliation, and that is remaining stable. We don't have any, there might be some swings up and down a little bit, but nothing that we are, we're not looking at anything too significant. So that is pretty stable.
Okay, I have a quick question for you. You're projecting a $67,000 budget deficit, right? Which, okay, we understand that. But now you're also have a loss of revenue of 97. So is that added? Is that like a compounded? Are we looking at 67 and 97 as a total out of pocket need, or is it just a 67?
It's just the 67. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep.
So that 67 would come out of the 113, or is that 113 already in the mix?
That's already in the mix. Yeah. So the 67 is the net number of everything. And then everything else is sort of the details of that, the ins and the outs.
Okay. So we gave I want to just be clear. This is not an interrogate, just be clear.
Yeah, okay.
You have 113,000 that we gave you in the contingency fund, of which you're using 97,000 of that to offset. So there's a difference there of, 15,000 or so.
Mhm.
Is that already included into your 67,000 deficit?
It is, yeah. So that's
Yeah.
actually offsetting a lot of that revenue loss. So yeah. It's already.
So
Yeah.
at the end of the year now, we would have to do a special, as if it stood, and I know it's not we have another month. We would have to appropriate you $67,000 out of the contingency fund to make you whole.
Right, correct.
Okay. Any Board of Finance members want to ask a question? We're all pretty good with this. This is somewhat what we expected. Dan, you expected this, right?
Yeah, 60. We're pretty damn close.
Yeah.
Eileen, you
Yeah,
sort of,
they've been tracking it all along and keeping us appraised, and we said that we would cover that. So that's not a concern for me.
Ricky,
Yeah, I'm good. It's getting better. So
Brianna,
Yeah, I'm fine.
Steve, you're in the mix.
Yeah, I'm very good with this. I think this has been very clear and understandable every month.
Okay, so as of now, we understand what you've been doing. Rosa, we appreciate what you've been doing. And like I say, please keep Steve and Marcia abreast if something crazy happens before the end of the year so we can make arrangements.
Yeah, of course, definitely.
All right. Any questions for Rosa before we let her go? Thanks, Rosa.
All right, thanks.
Marcia?
All right, it's just short this month. The economic dashboard, you got that? It looks like it looks every month. Interest is a problem. Everything else is doing well. COVID cases are down. Revenue, that we did drop back a little bit on our revenue projections because what we found was that what I found, and Roberta had, the tax collector had told me that we had a lot of double payments, and so that some of that revenue that we thought was revenue, we had to refund because people are refinancing their home, so that both the new bank and the old bank is paying the mortgage. So that's why we dropped that back a little bit. The development fee, we were saying we thought it would be coming in this summer, and we've now are estimating that it'll be coming in this next fiscal year if it comes in this summer. That we've got a lot of grants out there and applications that we're working on. That on the revenue, so that there were some spots we didn't have the money, we didn't show the dollar amounts for. Some won't be in the general fund revenue, but they're all still in play. Expenditures, nothing significant from last month. We have started summarizing what transfers that we might need, but we're not asking for any transfers tonight because they have to go to the Board of Selectmen first. That we don't expect to need any more contingency money except for the 67,000 we just talked about with the Board of Ed, and whatever that ends up to be at the end. Audit update, that year-end 20 has been out. There's a form that we owe every year, the UCOA report. They are in the process of changing the format. So that is still an open item for last year. They thought in May or June they would have the new reporting requirements for that. For year-end 21, that we still need to approve the auditors for 21, either at this meeting or the next meeting. We have a form we have to send to OPM to tell them that they've been approved. We are in year 5 of a 5-year contract with them. The fee, they're still going off their original bid for the fees. I think it's 60,000, and we get a discount of 6,000 because we prepare the financial statements ourselves. And if they're approved as auditors, they're scheduled to come in July 12th to 16th for the preliminary field work. For year-end 2022, we want to just keep thinking about this, that because they had a 3-year contract with a 2-year option to renew, and we are now at the end of that. So we either renew it again, we go out to bid. I don't think we're going to get anything cheaper. I think that as far as quality firms, that there might be 4 of them out there that do this, and one is my old firm, which we would not be independent for because my husband's still a partner. So we're talking about them and 2 others. So that's a decision that the Board of Finance should be thinking about over the next few months.
Before we go to the next page, Dan, you were lead on this.
Yep.
I think we need your guidance.
Yep.
That you've done a great job with Marcia and Steve, and I'd like to hear your guidance. We could vote on this tonight, but then I'd like for you offline to talk with Steve and Marcia to see if we just go ahead and not go out the bid and we just sign up for the next 5 years and keep consistency, because the boards could change. The first selectman could change. No offense, Steve, I'm just saying everything could change. that if we could keep consistency with the auditor, it may give us, and that's a decision you know, the three of you offline maybe can discuss. Just my opinion. So,
I agree with you. I have no problem recommending to continue with to approve them for the next year's audit. We should do that tonight and get it out of the way. There's no reason not to do that.
I think, Dan, I think the Board of Finance bylaws call for a review of this every 5 years. I'm not sure exactly how it's worded.
Yeah.
You have to review or go out to bid. I think it's just review and have a discussion.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I'm not. Let's take the next 5 years offline and take care of 21 audit today.
correct. I agree with that. That's what I'm saying. But
Yeah,
the three of you who've been intimate with the audit offline for our next meeting, so then we as a Board of Finance can get the opinion of Marcia, Steve, and Dan. I think you've been the most intimate with this audit process.
Got it. We'll do.
Steve, you agree?
I agree.
Marcia?
I think that I can provide input, but being the finance director, I shouldn't be involved in the decision. That,
Understood.
Oh, yeah.
Understood. Rest of the board, your opinions, if you have any or none? Okay, so under new business, Dan, we'll bring that up, right?
Okay.
We'll vote on that. Okay.
I'll be ready.
Okay, sorry. Thanks, Marcia. Go ahead.
And then the next thing is that we've asked you to approve the suspense list. And Roberta, our tax collector, is on the phone or on the Zoom call if you have any questions for her. But she was nice enough to give me a little summary to help you with what we're doing here. That every year we've got to approve a suspense list, which is similar to writing things off to bad debt. But when you write things off to bad debt, you generally don't continue your collection actions. With a suspense list, you still continue your collections actions. It's just on a different database, essentially. And the methodology that she's used is she's gone back 3 years to the list year of 2017, and in mass written off motor vehicles and personal property. And again, this is how she does it every year. The 2 years since then, she's used specific identification to write things off, and you can see what that is in the reason column. For example, they went out of business, they are dead, the mail is being returned, so it seems like they've moved, but she's still taking action on that. That for motor vehicles, for example, they all get sent to the collections agency and to the state, so they can't register a new motor vehicle in Connecticut under the same name. And of course, people play games that they put it under the husband's name, then the wife's name, then the first child's name. But that's part of how we try to collect it. And then personal property goes to the marshal to do the collection actions there. All expenses of the collection is paid by the taxpayer and not paid by us. And then there's a short history at the bottom of how much every year has been transferred to suspense. And so this is the lowest amount this year of $77,449.
I'm sort of lost though on the history. Why is there two 2020s?
Because I was typing fast and the bottom right is 2018.
Okay, then that makes more sense to me.
Yes, sorry.
So basically it's gone down each year. Like
Yes, it
2018 was the highest, 19 was the second highest. Last year was in line to be the third highest, and this year it's down to 77, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Can I say something?
Yes, Roberta.
Sure.
So one of the things over time, like it seemed in the past, they just didn't put a lot in suspense. So I was really kind of doing a lot of cleanup work. So finally, we're kind of at the point where hopefully this is more the normal way where it will be. So that's why 2018 was so large.
And Marcia, you've gone through this number and it makes sense to you as well?
It makes sense. I didn't recognize any of the names. For example, I didn't see any of you people on the list that were writing them off. So that, but I wouldn't know a lot of the names that. But I did go through the reasons, and they made sense.
So from what Roberta just said, and since we've sussed this out, this is a number around each year that's going to be close to this number. I mean, obviously, people dying, you can't predict or anything, but this is going to be more the norm, exactly, is what she said, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And I would imagine that possibly in 2022, and now that we say that, in 2022, it might go up because a lot of businesses failed. That so it is cleanup,
Makes sense.
and it's a little bit based on the economy.
That makes sense, actually. Do we account for any of this in our budget somewhere? Because I don't remember where we do.
We do. Ultimately, we account for it because we never say we have 100%
100%,
collections.
yep. Okay.
And so part of that is because we're writing things off to suspense, and part of that is because just the timing of the years. But that's why we never have 100% collections.
Okay. All right. Any questions on suspense while Roberta's here, Board of Finance?
Yeah. Yeah, hey, this is Ricky. Did we actually receive this recently? Because I didn't see anything come through in my email.
You received it about a month ago because last year you didn't think that you had it in time. So she sent it out in April. So you had almost a full month.
Okay, I wasn't sure if this was just like an updated one just recently sent. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Marcia. Continue, please.
Any other questions on finances?
Nope.
Okay.
All right. So I think now we go on to Dan, the audit committee. So this would be a, go ahead, you're shaking.
Oh, yeah. So should I make a motion to approve that the Board of Finance approves the current audit firm for the 21 audit? Is that what we're looking for, Marcia?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I make a motion that the town, or that we approve the existing auditor for the year-end 21 audit work.
I'll second. Discussion. Anybody have any questions on this? Hearing no discussion, let's take a vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes 5-0. Okay. Any old business we need to take care of? New business. We've gone through the budget review. The only other new business is the suspense list. Are we comfortable in voting on that? I'll make a motion that we approve the suspense list as presented to us tonight for this current year. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion. I think the number is what it is. I think that it's gone down. I think, like they said, it's going to be a number that could go up next year, but we do account for it in the budget, like Marcia explained it to us, and it does go through a process. And I think under Steve and Marcia and Roberta, the process has gotten better. They brought in the marshals at some, right, Steve? You brought in the marshal service to start collecting. So I think that's in good shape, and do not see any reason why we couldn't vote on that and approve that tonight. So Dan, any comments?
I'm good. I agree with you.
Anybody have any comments before we go to vote?
Nope.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none, vote passes 5-0. I don't think we had anything else, right? I mean, we covered the suspense list and the audit, right?
I just have one do we have to set a meeting for next Wednesday, assuming the budget passes, to set the mill rate?
Yes. How many days do we have after the budget passes, Steve?
I think it's 7, I can double check, but you usually do it the day after.
Right.
Okay. So then the day after is the next Wednesday, like Dan said. So we all available for a short meeting on that Wednesday?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
Okay, very good. Any other new items to come before the board? Okay, hearing none. Public comment. Is anyone on here for public comment? All right, hearing none. Dan, you're first to the left. You get Mark's seat.
I'll take it. I move to adjourn.
I will
second.
Okay, we have a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Bye, Mark.
Thanks, everybody, for a great meeting. Have a good night.